Hi, welcome to this channel on magnetic energy, technology, principles, applications. This video is about magnetic energy and ions versus electrons. And this is a kind of a hot topic in this arena, and there's a lot of controversy about this. So I kind of need to do a little video on this, even though I don't know if this video is going to help anything or not. But at least I got to give them the perspective to some degree from this magnetic energy etheric model. So the electrons, okay, first of all, let's just begin with this. Everything I'm saying in this is relative to the pressure flow, the pressure system that we live in, that includes the ionosphere, and relative to the gravity circuit that we live in. And that includes the gravitational field around our planet, solar system, and beyond. So those are critical points in the magnetic energy model because everything is relative to those systems, to the etheric pressure system and the gravitational systems. Ions are free as long as you don't use electrical technology to capture, utilize, or harness them. Electrons are not free as long as they are being stripped from the system by force. So and that's a generalization, but there's a lot of truth to that. And the point of that statement is that we use electrons are the big thing. What we call electrons are the big thing in our society right now with electricity and the flow of electricity, even though it's not really a flow. So an electron is, from this model, an electron would be like an expression of an etheric exchange. There is no such thing as this little homogeneous ball of energy called an electron that just simply orbits, protons and neutrons. I mean that model is so far beyond idiocracy. I don't even want to say idiocracy, ludicrousy. I don't know. So it's so inaccurate that it's almost pathetic that we even still have it in any textbooks. But that's all right. All in good time. In good time, all things will be shown to be the way they really are. So electrons are an expression of this etheric exchange of energy. So there's a energy structure to electrons, and that structure goes very, very deep, and it has etheric offshoots, if you will call that. And those offshoots contain information. They contain resonant information about the elemental resonances that the electron has not only encountered or been exposed to or been part of that system, but will become or will be part of the system. So all of that is recorded now. Just based on that, what I said, that will change reality. Once that is understood, it'll change our reality, because there's so much encoded in what we call electrons and the rest of the system as well. But right now the topic is electrons. And so this idea of energy flowing in and out of a subatomic structure, and there's a vortex of energy coming in etheric flow that has embedded in it the elemental resonances, the energetic resonances that are related to where that electron is and what system it's in. And so as we strip these electrons from the system and we build up there's this etheric dump of energy. It's like all these little orphan electrons are looking for a home, but the disturbance, the etheric disturbance that they create in the ground right now, when you think about the tremendous amount of electricity being generated, and we have this return, what they're calling a return, which is this incredible buildup of etheric energy that is unbalanced because it doesn't include the inflow and the outflow, the etheric inflow and outflow. So it creates this imbalance of energy in the system, particularly the lower rim or the inner rim of the earth of energy. And that rim, in connection with the upper rim, the ionospheric rim, has this incredible imbalance that nature and the planet and these systems will always attempt to regain balance. I talk about this in several videos. And so that will lead to lightning, ground to cloud lightning, that will lead to ionospheric lightning. It'll lead to any type of vortices that could include any type of storms and anything. Those are all attempts of the system to regain balance. So we've gotten used to this idea of working with electrons, but stripping electrons is not only incredibly damaging to our planet, it is actually the ultimate result of that is the extinction of pretty much most life on this planet if that process doesn't stop. And so that's this whole idea that ions are free when you don't use electrical technology to get them, because ions are a balanced system of energy that have an inflow and outflow of etheric exchange. So from the conventional point of view, an ion would be a neutral, what we would call a neutral atom, and I love that word neutral comes into play here, that have either lost or gained electrons, and then we call them ions. So now, obviously, from the magnetic energy model, the blatant inaccuracy there is that. So the problem with that, from a magnetic energy model point of view, is there's assumptions embedded in that, and one of the assumptions that is commonly thought of in science is that there's a forced process that takes place in the ionosphere that causes the electrons to be stripped or gained or stripped. And but from the magnetic energy point of view, from this model, this is not a forced process. This The exchange or the gain or loss of an etheric vortice of energy is an opportunity that happens within those energy structures in the ionosphere. So not only is it beneficial to those structures, the whole process is an evolutionary process, and it's a process that enables the system to function the way it does. Nothing's being forced, it's all based on attract, and it's all based on the pressure flow system, and there's always something to be gained from this. There's an incredibly high level of efficiency within this system. And ions, when they have what are called opposing polarities, or they may be positive or negative ions, and they join together, it's not that positive attracts negative, it's that the inflow attracts the outflow. So when you have an opening of etheric and an etheric vortex that's either an inflow or an outflow, those attract to each other. Now those bundles, those groups of ions, they have an overall neutral charge. Now that's really important. So when you have a magnetic energy unit and you have a vortex and you have a counter-rotating vortex, you have a balance of etheric flow in those combined vortices. Those will connect to the ionosphere, and they will attract ion groups of ions that have a net neutral charge, but they will attract those not based simply on the vortex, but it's based on the elemental resonance signatures embedded in those vortices. That's why the type of magnets is so important. The housing is important, the type of wire in the coils is important. All of these play a role in the type of ions that are attracted into those vortices. And that's why ionic energy, if you're following this, I hope I'm making this somewhat clear, ionic energy is 1,000,000 times more versatile than electronic energy. Keep in mind, electronic phenomena in the universe, and now no disrespect for the electric universe model, because there's so many amazing cool things about it and it's so groundbreaking, but electrical phenomenon are 99.9% of the time, they are a byproduct, they are a result of an etheric magnetic phenomenon that takes place. And obviously, like lightning and all that, what happens first is a magnetic etheric phenomenon, the electrical discharge follows. And so in the magnetic model, we're working with the cause. We're working with first cause. We're not working with effects. We're working with the first thing that happens. So we're working with the etheric exchange, the magnetic process, not the byproduct, which would be an electrical phenomenon. Now, there will be electrical byproducts in magnetic units, and that's fine, because what the difference is, when we have electrons in the magnetic units, those have resulted from a resonant pulsation that creates the byproduct of the electrons, and those are not our focus. So we're not stripping anything. They serve a purpose in the device, but we never truly strip them. We never really harness them. What we're doing is we're capturing the ions. We're putting the ions to work. The ions are then performing their function. They maintain their structure. They maintain their elemental, or you want to call it their energetic structure. I would call it their molecular structure, but the reason I don't like saying that too much is because then it gives people this idea that there's something solid. There's nothing solid in anything, okay? There's no hidden particle, there's no Higgs boson phenomenon that's going on that gives everything its mass. That's not how things work. Mass is a product of an etheric pressure flow, an etheric pressure system, and a pulse rate, and changes in that magnetic energy that give the, not the illusion, but the idea or the phenomenon of mass. Okay, but everything is an energetic structure. And when you get deep into this system and you get into the like the subatomic offshoots that are etherically based, you realize very quickly that mass cannot exist, true mass or matter or something solid, no matter how small it is, cannot exist in this system, in the dimension that we think of commonly as our physical universe. You cannot have something solid in that system because it would completely disrupt the whole process. Everything is nearly infinitely deep, and that includes electrons. And so even if you had some sort of mass, some sort of matter, it would have to be built infinitely deep with energetic signatures or energetic resonances or energetic offshoots, and there wouldn't be any room for that. It wouldn't work. Plus, it needs to be able to resonate and pulse to fit various systems and go through a process of etheric exchange, continuous etheric exchange. Everything is under an exchange of energy at all times. So even when you utilize ions in a magnetic device, and they can perform heat or light or anti-gravity or assembling matter, disassociating matter, all of these different things. They can perform a millions of different functions. Everything that we commonly think of today as like serving us in our everyday existence, ions can do it a million times better than electricity, than electrons. And at the end of the day, the ions are still grouped together. Their net charge is still neutral. They go right back into the system. They don't build up any unwanted fields in the system. They are readily accepted right back into the system. And I can't overstate how important that is, because a magnetic device not only does it bolster the ionosphere and strengthen the ionosphere and the ozone layer, doesn't strip any free electrons like electrical production does, like electricity generation does, but it strengthens those fields, it bolsters them. It does not drain the ionosphere. I repeat, magnetic energy devices do not drain the ionosphere, because they don't strip anything. They keep everything in its original format, and it's readily accepted right back into the system. The system is open. The ionosphere is an open system. It feeds with universal energy and etheric energy. It will meet any demand that is put on it, as long as the demand is done properly, as long as it is done in a more neutral manner. You cannot have a highly polarized type of energy like an electron that is being stripped without the system needing to rebalance that and create incredible disruption. Okay, so the system will meet whatever demand you put on it. That's why I'm saying, relative to that system, ions are free. If you do it correctly, they are free, and they will go through our system just like a pipeline of energies, just like a river of energy, just like everything else on this planet, including our physical bodies, trees, everything. And they will go right back into the system. They'll serve their purpose. They'll help us do whatever we need to do in everyday living and go right back into the system. So, ions versus electrons. There's no comparison. Ionic energy is the way of the future. And when you combine that with the magnetic vortices and the resonance signatures embedded in those vortices, you have groundbreaking technology that is space age technology. It is the end of scarcity of every form that you can imagine. Okay, it's the end of material scarcity, it's the end of food scarcity, it's the end of every type of energy scarcity, and it opens the door to anti-gravitation, to the end of pollution, the end of garbage. Everything can be recycled safely and effectively with this type of energy. So, with that, and that's soapbox. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share the videos, and wish me luck. And we'll see you next time.